Hello, Burbank students. I'm Mrs. Brown.
And I'm Mrs. Taylor, and we are here in your Burbank School Garden getting ready for our last and final spring garden Zoom for you guys.
We both came today to talk to you about patterns that are all around us, patterns in nature, and how they help us think and organize the world around us.
So we're going to work together, Mrs. Brown and I, in this Zoom, and we'll be showing you some slide presentation and also looking in the garden, just as Mrs. Brown said, for things that we can notice, right? That show us that nature might be trying to tell us something about how to think reasonably and logically and with patterns.
All right, here we go. I'm going to share my screen. And there we go. What do you see on this first slide, my friends? Ooh, have you ever seen a snail in the garden? They carry their own house right on their back. And I'm wondering if you've ever looked closely at the shape of that snail's shell. Do you think you can trace it with your finger with me right now? It's a circle that gets wider and wider and wider as it goes. That's called a spiral shape, just one of the many shapes or patterns that we see in nature. Why does the world look this way? I'm wondering if you see any patterns on my screen now. And how would you describe them? Let's look at this bottom one together. This is an animal that you might recognize. And I'm seeing alternating black, white, black, white. What would you call these shapes? What would you call this pattern? How about the one up here on the left? Look at that. That is some mud or some dirt. And when it dries, because it's elastic, it tends to crack in a certain shape. How would you describe that pattern to someone? How about this one on the inside of the flower? Use your finger. Do you see any shapes you recognize in the center of that flower? Curious about it. All right, let's talk about patterns that we know. I bet all of you have done some work with patterns in your classroom at this point. Let's look at this one that's blue and green squares. Let's follow the pattern here. I see green, blue, green, green, blue, green, green, blue. What's going to come next? Is it going to be a pineapple? Is it going to be a hummingbird? What comes next? And how do you know what comes next? How do you know it couldn't possibly be a pineapple? That's a pattern, right? It's teaching our brain to think logically and expect what's going to happen next. Look at this one. It's a little bit harder. Red circle, yellow square. Orange circle, yellow square. Red, yellow, orange, yellow. What's going to be next? In this case, we know both the color and the shape that's coming next, don't we? I bet that's a pattern you know. Now, let's get back to patterns we see in nature. How about a wave? If any of you have ever walked down to the beach, gone to the beach, you might have seen waves coming up to shore. Let's all be waves for a second. As a wave gets closer to shore, it gets bigger and bigger and taller and taller. And then it starts to kind of curl over on itself as the sand gets shallow, and eventually it crashes and pushes itself up onto the shore. And then it backs up a little bit into the ocean and does it again. We're making a wave pattern with our hands. That's a pattern that we see in the water of the ocean. How about a tree? Have you ever stood at the bottom of a tree and looked up? If you look up, you might notice how the branches come off of the trunk of the tree. And as they get thinner and further from the trunk, they branch into usually a V shape. And then those go out a little further and then they branch again. That's called a branching shape. Do we have any of that in the garden right now, Mrs. Taylor?
Well, my friends, maybe we can take a look around. I'm going to turn my Zoom screen so you can see what I see, and we'll look together in the garden for a branching pattern. Here we go. Mrs. Brown, can you see what I see?
Yes, I can. I'm going to stop sharing for a second so I can really see it.
Oh, there we go. All right, my friends. Look, here in our beautiful garden, right away, I see a plant that we call fennel. And every single branch, right, mimics or repeats as it goes towards the end of the branch. And here I'm going to try to isolate one so you can see just a little. It's a smaller version of what Mrs. Brown was noticing up in a tree, right? So we'll be able to see a branching pattern there as it reaches out and grows. And I'm wondering, as this fennel grows, will it repeat the existing pattern that we see all the way till the end? We'll be wondering about that. Should I look for some other branching patterns, Mrs. Brown?
Sure.
Here's a branching pattern. This is the fennel when it starts to get flowers. And this is going to be a pattern that we'll talk about in a moment, but I'm also noticing that as this fennel, I'm trying to get it where you guys can see it, as this fennel reaches its flower up, its long, slender stem also branches off so that each flower has its own place to grow at the end of the stem. All right, Mrs. Brown, should we look for some more? Let's just notice right here, my friends, that we have a ladybug. It just presented itself, so I wanted to see. That's a ladybug larva, right? That's going to grow into the interim stage between the caterpillar and, right, the ladybug itself when it has its shell. And in fact, it's very, very popular over here. We can see on the other bits of fennel. These ladybugs must really be happy here, because this is one that's going to turn. This is the larva, or the soft-bodied part. And then they'll turn all the way into the hard-shelled ladybug. All right, we digress slightly, but it's just so fun to see our nature.
All right, Mrs. Brown is going to pull back up our slideshow, and I had a little bit of a tech challenge. So here we are on our next slide, and we're going to talk about a different kind of pattern. This one's called symmetry, and that's when things are the same, one side and the other side. Look at all these faces at the bottom of my screen here, folks. If you take an imaginary line and draw it down the middle of the face, is it the same on both sides? How about your face? What if you use your hand or a pencil or something you have to divide your face down the middle? Maybe if somebody's sitting near you, you can turn and look at them and they can tell you, is your face the same on both sides? Is your smile the same on both sides? Your eye on the left the same as your eye on the right? If it is, that's a symmetry or symmetrical pattern. I bet we have some of that in our garden to discover. Go ahead.
All right, my friends. Hello, it's Mrs. Taylor in the garden again. And in fact, we do. This is the leaf of our strawberry. See, there's our beautiful strawberries being tasted by some kind of a critter, but there's our beautiful ripe red strawberry. And what I'm wondering, if Mrs. Brown was talking about bilateral symmetry, it's just the same on both sides. Does this strawberry flower exhibit bilateral symmetry? If we were to draw a line right down the middle, would it be the same on both sides? Another part of the strawberry, right, is this leaf. And this leafing pattern with its veins, its leaf pattern, one way we can see if things are bilateral or the same on both sides is to fold them in half. And when we open it up, does that line show similar parts of that leaf on either side? And even the strawberry itself, maybe from the top, here's another one, maybe from the top, a strawberry, do you see how the strawberry top has leaves that stretch out from the center? If we drew a line down that, would it be the same? And even the berry itself. So all types of places to find symmetry in nature.
That's right. That's a pattern we can see in our own bodies. If we draw an imaginary line right down the middle of us, are we the same on the right and on the left? All right, I'm going to share my screen again. We're going to look at the next slide together. Ooh, this is one of my favorite patterns in nature. This shape that we see in the beehive down here in the honeycomb is called a hexagon. Let's count the number of sides together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Did you see that? Let's count it one more time just to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 sides makes a shape called a hexagon. And what do you think of when you look at that hexagon? It's a shape that's known for being very efficient. You can fit lots of spaces very tightly together when you use a hexagon shape for the sides. It's also known as being a strong shape, and I think quite beautiful. It's a shape we've copied. Look at these pencils up here. It's a shape we copy a lot from nature for its efficiency, its beauty, and its strength. All right, on the next slide, oh, one of my other favorite patterns that we see in nature is the spiral, just like that snail shell at the very beginning of our slide deck. Can you show me the spiral shape with your hand again? Look at our butterfly. I don't know if you've ever seen a butterfly this close, but this butterfly has a tongue-like structure called a proboscis. And look, it carries it in this spiraled up shape. I wonder why it does that. What do you think it does with that proboscis? Can you make one with your hand? Can you pretend to be the butterfly? What about when you want to take a drink from the nectar in the center of one of those flowers, like the strawberry flower Mrs. Taylor was showing us? Do you think that proboscis spiral shape might help? You think you might be able to unwind it and find your way to the very center of the flower? Or how about when we had our sugar snap peas growing? Remember those little tendrils on the edge of the peas that they used to grab onto the fence and climb up towards the sun? Those are spirals too. A spiral is something that we see over and over again in nature and in a garden. Do you know what this animal is connected to the spiral here? I'll give you a hint. This is an animal that lives in the ocean. What do you think that spiral might be used for? All right. One pattern we see in nature is a cycle, a repeating circle. And we have talked about that many, many times this year together in our garden lessons. You probably all remember, I know it was one of my favorites, when we brought the baby chickens to show you through the Zoom. And of course, they're part of a life cycle, the life cycle of a chicken. That baby hatches from an egg, and that little chicken will do its growing. And once it becomes an adult chicken, if it's a female, a hen, it can lay an egg and start the cycle all over again. And Miss Taylor is going to remind us of our banana peel life cycle that we've been thinking about together all year.
All right, my friends, Mrs. Brown is right. We're going to take a look at our banana peel. And as we look, I want you to be using your finger to trace that repeating circle or a cycle, right? This could be about the chicken and the egg and the chick and the full grown, or we could make this cycle into our banana peel and our soil and our new plant. And maybe we can even use that cycle to do some other types of thinking here in the garden. All right, I'm going to change my Zoom so you can see what I see. Let's take a look under our big stone right here. Ready? Get ready to see our banana peel. Oh my goodness, I'm going to have to zoom in because look at which part of the cycle the banana is on now. All right, we started with the banana, right? We ate the banana and put the peel here. Now this cycle is going to go back to soil or dirt. All the building blocks of that banana body are going to break down and become parts of this healthy soil that can be used then in the next part of our cycle, which is to grow something like this garlic here, or maybe the world's biggest carrot. Can you guys see these huge carrots? I'm going to show you. Look at those. Those are part of the banana cycle too, because when the cycle turns to soil, any new plant can grow out of that soil. So all of those things are connected. And in fact, I'm wondering if maybe we could use that connected cycle to think about other things in our lives and how they might be connected. So take it away, Mrs. Brown.
All right. I'm going to try to share my screen again. And on our next slide, we are going to watch a little video. And she was thinking about a t-shirt. She was thinking about all the cycles around her and wondering about recycle. Notice the word recycle has the word cycle in it too. She was wondering if a t-shirt, which is made, by the way, from a plant called a cotton plant. This is a drawing of a cotton plant right here, and the nice fluffy parts on the end are what are used to make the yarn or the thread that makes the t-shirt. What can happen next? How can we use that word recycle that we know, that we've heard, to turn this t-shirt's life into more of a cycle? Let's watch together and think about that.
Every day, we engage in cycles. Patterns are like clues from nature, showing us how things are organized and connected. What might these patterns be telling us? Now let's think back to other patterns or cycles that we've experienced together. How can these cycles help us think in new ways? Where else can we try to think in cycles? By observing these patterns, we might see a creative place to jump in and make a change.
I think that video showed us that thinking in cycles and looking for opportunities to make circle patterns in our lives and in our choices is a pretty powerful way of thinking. Don't you, Mrs. Taylor?
I completely agree, and I really appreciate how Audrey's video showed us that our thinking from the garden and life cycles of plants and chickens and our dirt and our banana peel can be applied to things that we might not think of as having a life cycle, like a t-shirt. So way to go, Miss Audrey, in that really informative and interesting and fun video.
I agree. All right, our friends, we are going to sign off here pretty soon, and we're going to leave you to keep thinking about patterns, keep noticing what you're seeing in your lives and in nature. And we have all kinds of activities that your teachers can make available to you so you can keep thinking and exploring this idea of patterns. I'm going to show you a little example of some of the things we have. We have an exercise where you make a pattern snack. We have an art exercise if you want to use art to show patterns. We have a yoga where you can move your body in certain patterns that might help you stretch or relax. And we have an excellent story time called Swirl by Swirl, where Michelle explores with us other patterns that are all around us. Anything else you want to show in the garden, Mrs. Taylor?
Sure, I will show you guys one more thing. Let's take a look together. I'm going to turn my zoom over here. I want to show you a couple things. This is a super interesting, fun vegetable called the kohlrabi, otherwise known as the little spaceship vegetable. It has a circular pattern, right? But if we look from the top, we might also notice that its stems, right, are going to come off in a pattern. That's a fun vegetable. And the other thing I'm wondering is if we can find some potatoes, because here in your garden, we have grown potatoes. This is the potato green part. And I'm wondering, do you see that? Did you know potatoes grow under the ground like a root, like a carrot? That's a pattern, right? Different vegetables share different traits together. And I'm going to look and see if there's any more little potatoes, right? Growing off. I know. And here it's starting to already send up little baby potato shoots, right? To grow the next potato. And that's a beautiful one, right? A red potato. So that's where our potatoes come from. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. There's one more. Oh my goodness. This one's so big. It's taking all of my hand strength. Oh my goodness. That's the superhero of all potatoes. Oh
I know
my
we're
goodness.
having for dinner.
That's right. Oh my gosh, how fun. Look what you guys grew right here in your school garden. And my goodness, with that, I tell you what, my friends, we have had so much fun sharing videos and garden time with you guys together, even though it's been virtual. And we can't wait to see you if it's all safe, you know, in the fall when you're back at school. And hopefully we'll do some growing together when we see you guys again soon. So
Can't wait to see you.
dirty fingers. Bye, you guys.
Bye, everyone. Have a
Bye.
great summer, and we'll see you in the fall.
See you next year.
Bye.